Welcome to Hidden Values, the show where we review obscure and classic JRPGs and RPGs. I'm your host, Noah Price, also known as Hero Scrub. I'm your Christian. I am your. I'm your Christian scholar. Uh, I love video games. I love JRPGs and RPGs, and I truly believe that it's important for all Christians and non-Christians, really, just anybody, but specifically Christians, to be aware of what influences and values are in the games that we consume. Today, we'll be looking at a indie game called Shattered: Tales of the Forgotten King. Even though at this point, Souls-like games are a dime a dozen, I truly believe that this game does a few things that truly does set it apart within the Souls-like genre. I'd be surprised if you didn't know what that game is, but Dark Souls is a game that's known for its hard, brutal difficulty and unforgiving gameplay, while also having a very cryptic and mysterious story alongside it. When looking at Shattered: Tales of the Forgotten King, it's very easy to just see the two and see Shattered as a simple knockoff, a wannabe of the Souls-like genre, of the Soul-like games. But I would like to say that the Shattered: Tales of the Forgotten King very much does have its own identity, and I think it's worth looking into. Just to help solidify a little bit more of what Shattered: Tales of the Forgotten King is, it is a action-packed RPG in a semi-open world while playing with the mechanics of both 3D and 2D. Technically, it's considered 2.5D, but a little bit weird to think about. What it means is, for the most part, the game plays in a 3D perspective, just like majority of Souls-like games. But it will have its own little caveats where during platform scenes, and even sometimes with combat, it'll switch into a 2D scene. This switching from 3D to 2D, from exploration and just platforming skills, this was inspired by games like Shadow of the Colossus, Soul Reaver, Journey, and of course, Dark Souls. The genre of this game being a little bit more solidified, before we move into the story and what this game is, what is the goal, purpose, and fun part of this game, let's take a step back and let's actually talk about the creators of this game. The creators of Shattered: Tales of the Forgotten King is a small French company called Redlock Studio. This small team has been working on this game for over 10 years now. What really inspired them while making this game was dark fantasy, sci-fi, and even some Lovecraftian horror. When looking at my experience of the game, I can't really say too much that I've saw the Lovecraftian horror. Like, don't worry, there's no Cthulhu's in this game unless you're looking for that. Then sorry, none of that here. If my brother's watching, he would be a little bit disappointed. But I can also see what they're talking about with the Lovecraftian horror, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the art design of this game. But not surprisingly, just like basically all Souls-like games now, the creators at Redlock Studios very much were kind of not quite paying homage, but this game was very much for those who love Souls-like games. This should be encouragement to you if you love Souls-like games. Let me know down in the comments if you're kind of looking at this game, whether you are someone who loves the Soul-like games and want more content similar to that, or if you're on the other side where Souls-like games are you're not sure. Maybe as a Christian you have some problems with it, I don't know, and so you're trying to look for a substitution, something that might be better. Spoilers, this might be a good choice for you. Last small bit about the creators of Redlock Studios and with their creation and their kind of motives while making the game. One thing they really tried to push and put into the game was kind of forcing the player into internal dilemmas. Now, on paper, this sounds very much like multiple choices when making conversation trees in majority of games, but really their more intent was focusing not so much on the gameplay side of things, but more focusing on the player playing the game. What I mean is, they really wanted to question, why are you doing X, Y, and Z in the game? I personally actually felt this while playing the game, especially with early on enemies where, to me, growing up with Mario, it's easy to just discount a Goomba as just an enemy. I'm just gonna kill it. In this game, it does kind of prompt you in a few ways of questioning of, is this actually okay? Should I be killing this dude? I technically haven't been told to kill anybody. What am I even doing here? Parallel over to Dark Souls with this, I actually felt the same thing when killing humanity phantoms in that game. Even though they were considered bad and also I got resources from it, it did feel really eerie and off, pretty muchly wrong, which I believe is very fascinating and I really enjoyed. Those are some points to both games, I would say. Moving on from the inspirations of the devs with creating this game, let's talk about the world of him. In Shattered Tales of a Forgotten King, you play a mute character who's just woken up in a fragmented and broken world. As you begin your search, just making through the world, you find a little friend called Yak. Or Yak. Yak. However you pronounce it. I don't actually know. This little dude helps with telling you a little bit more about the world, and you two are in search of the king. See, this ancient king is gone. He's disappeared for some odd reason. And with his disappearance, the land has started to break. And on top of that, new management has come along, aka 3 big baddies. Well, technically 4. But you and Yak set out to find the ancient king and to hopefully, hear me out, hopefully get your name back in your voice. Yep. That's your character's motive. Cool. And on top of that, of course, as you make your way through the game, you find NPCs, you find people, and similar to Dark Souls, these characters are your way of finding out more about the game and aka the game story. Through dialogue with these characters, this is where you actually really find out that there's a little bit more going on with this world. Not only is it just simply falling apart and breaking and is kind of on its way out of town, but some weird kooky stuff is going on. The world is actually kind of mixed together with time periods. There's a lot of things going wrong with the Hypnos. You know, it has its charm, but it has a lot of ugly spots too. As you probably have noticed by now with the footage I've shown of NPCs and the main character, Shattered Tales of a Forgotten King has its own unique aesthetic to it, with its clash of ink and glitchy vibes together while mixing in with a black and white and overtone of grayness. This game really has a somber overtone to it, which is pretty fitting for a broken world if you ask me. But on top of that, there's this huge imagery of masks. These masks are connected to the brains of the character, and there's a lot of questions within the game about, which came first, the mask or not? Ha ha ha. The masks of this game is very much represented as the soul itself of each character. It's said that these masks were literally what started of the character. It was the very first thing, and that it's very much connected and controls the body. And to strip that would kill it. Which is kind of weird because there's actually a currency of these masks. You can collect these masks, kind of, technically. It's very weird and a little bit morbid. But again, looking back at Dark Souls, that's literally what humanity was. So would I be surprised? And just to also clarify, these characters with these active masks and who you are compared to the enemy are considered wanderers. Those who are not wanderers are enemies. And basically, they're looked at as individuals who have lost in their way or lost their self. Not to keep pointing at Dark Souls and compared to that, but it's very similar to the concept of hollowing out that's in that game. Going back to the ancient king of this game, aka the god of this game, the creator, it's very interesting how they portrayed him or her or it. I don't think they actually said a pronoun for it. It very much reminded me of the ultimate creator god and the creation story of Genesis 1. It starts off by talking about how this king, this ancient god, created this thing, but how they describe it is by saying very, very brief, simple things. By using the adjectives of advanced and stuff like that, it very much portrayed this ancient king or this god, as being just so powerful, so strong that he's barely even like trying to do X, Y, and Z, and he's creating all this stuff. It's just very interesting. For me, it feels like looking at a Christian God and being like, ah, I see, you created it like this. Well, this ancient king is so much better because he barely did anything, and he was able to. Just, I thought it was interesting. Moving on to the gameplay side of Shattered Tales of the Forgotten King, very similar to Dark Souls. Let's just start off with that. There are a few mechanics that they have on their own, which does kind of set it apart, which I really enjoy. But the rest of its mechanics are very similar to the Souls. Do we have currency that we get from enemies that we also use for XP? Check. Do we have checkpoints where if we die, we fall to and we're trying to reach checkpoint? Check. Do we have shortcuts that we open up through different paths? Check. Do we have a hard difficulty, which when killing a player requires us to have to trek all the way back from where we were? Check. Do we have an XP that can be lost forever if we die from an enemy? Check. Well, kind of not. This last one actually stands out a little bit more, and I kind of like that it does, but that's also for different reasons. There's two main reasons with it. One is kind of like, I'm fine with it, I'll take it. Second one's like, yes. So the first one being that this XP, when you get killed by an enemy, just like majority of Souls games, what will tend to happen is that it's at a certain spot and it sits there. But in the Souls games Bloodborne, they actually changed that mechanic to where when an enemy killed you, it will be actually on that enemy, and when you kill that enemy, you will get it back. Well, this game does the same thing, and so whenever you lose to an enemy, your souls or your essence is connected with that enemy. And so you have to go back and kill the enemy and you get it back. The second thing that does happen with this currency, which I love so much. I love it so much. I wish the main Souls games did this. So one thing that would happen a lot is not only will you lose your souls from an enemy, but your souls from falling. So normally that could be very frustrating for a player. But in this game, if you fall off the cliff or whatever, a hole even, you don't lose your aeons. It'll say aeons lost, aeons lost, but actually you have it still, which is great. It's such a relieving thing, and I don't think it makes the difficulty less. It just makes it less frustrating when it's kind of unnecessary. It's not even like really fun part of the gameplay, kind of hard. And on top of this really builds on top of each other, because another mechanic that this game does have, which kind of sets it apart from the Souls game, which actually is one of the few elements that does make it set apart in general, is you have mobile in this game. What I mean by that is basically in this game you have a double jump. You have a double jump and a dash, which you can do in the air. This very much allows you to be able to jump around while in combat. When you're facing dudes, you can jump up and have an aerial slam down. That's fun and all, and it's great. But what it also allows you to do, and what it allowed the creators to do in this game, is open up the world to be a little bit more explorational. Throughout playing this game, there's almost all surfaces you see, you can somewhat jump and parkour on it. Not all, obviously, but there's a lot of areas that you could just jump and kind of climb around, and this game very much pushes that with just items that you can find in odd places. The game very much encourages you to explore through platforming. And when you add on you don't have a consequence for possibly falling off, oh, it's so much fun just to be, while I'm through an area, just to look around and be like, ooh, what's that? I'm gonna climb that. And then you climb up there, and even if there's nothing there, it was just fun to climb up there. Also, not only that, but similar to how it feels sometimes in a Assassin's Creed game, where you're on a rooftop and climbing, or sometimes when you're in a game and you feel like you're kind of in an area you're not supposed to, you feel clever for taking this tactic to get an edge on an enemy. you can totally do this in this game through just parkouring on top of a ledge or a building. You can attack enemies from above, and it's just so satisfying. It feels so good, and it's one of my favorite parts of this game. I would suggest playing this game even just for this element, just to experience that. It adds a level where it's not too crazy, but it's very fun. And alongside platforming, as I already mentioned before, with the 3D to 2D, uh, there's a lot of platforming scenes with that area too, which kind of breaks up the monotony of going through the 3D. I will say, while this was very unique and interesting, and again, I would say that this gives points to Tales of a Forgotten King for being a little bit more unique and creative. The downside is there's a lot of elements where it does kind of sketch me out. This is not so bad, especially when you have no consequences for dying from falling. So it's not too bad. The main area that I really kind of was felt weird about was whenever you fought enemies while in 2D. It doesn't happen often, but it is a little bit weird, especially when you're used to moving in a 3D field and fighting it. Not bad, but weird. Also, I didn't mention this before. Favorite mechanic in a game, whenever your dodge roll or your dodge mechanic is invincibility frames for sure. Love it, love it. This game has it with the dash. Well, technically, if you're not in the air and you just roll, but in the air when you dash, you have you can't get hit, which is great. I love that mechanic. So whenever a game has that, again, points for the game. Just like with the Souls games, what the game does have is the parry system and actually the backstab system. It's very interesting, and I don't know. I enjoyed the backstab. I'm glad that they're there, but the parry system, man, I don't know that. I honestly, when I was playing through the game, I didn't even really try to get good at the parrying system. This is just simply because the parry system in this game is hard. So if you are playing Dark Souls and you love the parry system, you love a hard parrying system, maybe like Dark Souls 2, well, here it is. You can do it. I mostly avoided it just because it was a little bit too extreme for me, I would say. Another mechanic that the game does have is it does at one point give you a shield. Dark Souls is very known for having shields and whatnot, and especially in normal Dark Souls game, the tactic is shield up, and you're gonna take some hits or whatnot. And this game, its shield is kind of pathetic. Not pathetic. It takes hits, and when it takes hits, you have a stamina bar and it takes up that stamina bar. But the main difference that I hated with it is that it doesn't always cover everything, and so you could easily get hit while you even have your shield up, which kind of defeats the point of the shield. And I don't know. I didn't really find the shield mechanic really worthwhile, which especially when early on when you didn't have the shield, I was kind of looking forward to getting a shield. So getting that was a little bit disappointing to find out that it's not really good. One thing the game does give you from early on is basically spells. So this game, its system is very unique in that you get to slot in what you want. You don't pick different spells, but you kind of do. You don't really. It's just projectiles. I would say early on when I was using this projectiles, it felt very OP because you could just really stand far away and just puck these projectiles, and you could just do damage that stacks a bit. I didn't use it too much later on. I very much try to focus on strength, just like more of a traditional Dark Souls kind of playstyle almost. But I would like to see how it would be like if you very much just invested in just magic in this game, especially during bosses. Another mechanic or aspect of the gameplay mechanic that I'm a little bit disappointed about, I don't know, kind of not. And this is, again, when comparing to the mainline Souls games, and that is interrupting enemies. So majority when you're playing a Souls-like game, when you're attacking an enemy, they'll get interrupted and it'll allow you to keep on attacking or roll or whatever you want to do. Usually there's some kind of interruption, or there can be. This game is kind of weird in that it kind of does it, but also doesn't, and it's not always clear. And especially early on, it really messed me up because I was kind of expecting it, but I also didn't, and it was kind of rough. And in general, the game early on at least felt very sluggish, if not sluggish, but clunky. I say early on because I think it's one of those things of just getting used to the game. So if you're coming straight off from Dark Souls 3 like I was and going from this, it's going to take a little bit to get used to it. Otherwise, I think you will get used to it. So it's not something that kills the gameplay experience, but it's something to keep in mind if you were to go play the game. So this is this aspect of the gameplay. I don't know. I have troubles with sharing. I'm gonna share obviously because it's important to the experience that I had with this game. But it's kind of sad. So another thing that the game does have, because it does have a bunch of multiple weapons to it. It doesn't have multiple armors. You don't have to worry about armor and whatnot, but you do get different weapons. You can switch them out. And on top of that, you can upgrade weapons. There's a person there that you talk to. They'll allow you to upgrade the actual place you're upgrading your weapon. When you do that, you theoretically reach a threshold so you can upgrade your weapons, and then you upgrade the place, the upgrading place. And once you do that, then you can upgrade your weapon more. That's how it's put in place. I wasn't able to experience this. I was able to get it up to level 2, and then from there, I hit a bug to where even though I gave the person the materials that I needed, I wasn't allowed to upgrade my stuff. And I had all the materials to upgrade my weapon. I don't know. It was a mess. It was a bug. And so for the whole game, I couldn't. Basically, it was in order to upgrade the upgrading place. So for the whole game, I couldn't upgrade my weapons past level 2. Which meant that throughout the game, when I was expected to be at level 2 or higher for my weapon, I wasn't able to do that. So I had to be very patient with the damage I was dealing against enemies. This game does have bugs and glitches in it. Not too many, but I did find a few when trying to interact with Yik early on in the hub world limbo. Just a few early on, but once I got past that, it wasn't too much of a trouble. Like early on with the platforming spot, I got stuck. And it was kind of a pain to try to get out. But again, nothing game breaking, nothing that like ended my progress indefinitely. One glitchy and buggy aspect of the game that I did run into a lot, not too much, but I did get it here and there, which did kind of ruin the experience a tiny bit, was that I would very much get caught on objects while in boss. This didn't happen all the time, but it did happen a good amount in the final boss, which made it extremely hard. But basically, I would just get caught up on stuff. It wasn't all the time. There was just a few spots. It just required me to be a little bit more patient while playing, which, if you know about Dark Souls games, a main element of the game series is fighting a boss, learning their pattern, and playing very precise against that pattern. And so when you're getting caught up on stuff, it can make it very frustrating. But again, I only found it a few times here and there, mostly with bosses, but it wasn't too much of a problem except for the final boss. But that was there. The final mechanic I should share before we kind of get to a spot where I talk about the pros and cons, basically recap the lots that we did. Let's talk about the mechanic that I missed. While you're on your journey to find this ancient king, you have to go and journey through a big old world. This world actually really, the world of Hypnos really caught me off by surprise, mostly because for the first 5 hours of the game, you're kind of in a tutorial phase, which kind of made me a little bit worried. Just to let you guys know, so that you know that there's good things in this game. So like, I know a lot of people hate it when they hear, oh, you have to play X amount of hours before it gets good. I would say it was still good. It's just it was a little bit worrying of what the game as a whole was going to be. But just to let you know, not to worry. The game does open up. As I said, it's a semi open world, and it very much does that. After you get through that whole tutorial world, not fighting a boss, by the way, very weird. I was caught off guard. I was like, "Where's my first boss? I want my first boss at least. Give me a tutorial boss." And it's like, didn't even do that. It gives you like a really strong enemy, so it's like, all right, not quite the same, but we'll take it, I guess. But once you get past that, you get into a big old open space, and this place is massive. I was not expecting this at all. And within this, you're given an item which is basically the speeder from Destiny. I found it, I saw it, I read it in the description of the menu when I pulled it up. Didn't know I could use it, I didn't know how to, and because this game does act in some ways of not hand holding you, of different mechanics, it kind of does, but it also doesn't. And so I didn't know you could use it, and so I missed out on a huge fun mechanic of this game, getting to ride around in this world with a speeder. With this big old world, you can imagine how long this game took for me with trying a trek it all on foot. It's funny because I didn't realize this mechanic was actually usable until afterwards when I was researching this game after my playthrough experience and seeing a clip of somebody's gameplay with a speeder. So there we go. That's fun. Make sure you use that speeder when you play. So that mechanic's cool. I'm glad they have that in there because it did kind of suck traversing the world just on foot. It wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. Like it was whatever. It's just the world did feel a little bit empty because of that. But with the speeder, I would say that it's probably not going to feel as empty as it did to me. It could feel a little bit empty, but also not. There's a lot of little enemy forts and stuff like that, areas where you can find items and whatnot that allows you to very much just explore. So basically, on this journey, you're tasked to go take down these dudes, and each one has its own little specific area. You go through, you trek through, and you fight the boss. These boss fights, by the way, I would say they're very fun. Each one is different in a little bit of a sense. I would say don't put your expectations to Dark Souls boss fights, but they're still fun and interesting, and I thought they were a good time. I know I keep on saying 3 bosses. Technically, you're tasked with 4. 3 show up on the map. There's a 4th one. Quick spoilers. I'll put it on the screen. Timestamp if you don't want to be spoiled. Oh yeah, that 4th one's dead. You find it in this spot to where you fight a wanderer. There's a bunch of bad wanderers, and when you fight that, there's a specific one where when you fight it in the background, there's a dead one, big old dead creature, and you're supposed to be like, oh, that's what happened to that one. I thought it was interesting and cool. Some people thought it was a little bit annoying, but I think it's cool. And I'm pretty sure there's more elements like that in this game, so let me know down in the comments if you find anything more interesting like that in the game. Basically, if you just, again, for what I told, one aspect of the gameplay that I haven't talked about is not only are those big old bosses a goal to fight, but along your way, there's also a bunch of wanderers, but bad wanderers, who basically are traitors and you gotta kill them. It's actually the very first boss is one of these people. And when you do it, you find this essence, give that essence to a certain NPC, levels up your magic. There's a lot of weird stuff like that. Like there's an NPC who buy your masks that you find. Very weird, but that's also a thing. These NPCs are weird. I don't know. One specifically is very chaotic. That's kind of a lot of the story is very chaotic. Like, as a Christian, this is like very much story point where I'm like, all right, I don't really need to listen to this story. No offense to the creators of this game. I know they spent over 10 years coming up with a story that's connected. But personally to me, it very much felt kind of like trying to be convoluted like Dark Souls, but also like not really. It's unique to its own game. I would say that. So if you like the story of Dark Souls, you like how it's kind of convoluted and whatnot. It's not too convoluted. This one's a little bit more in your face, a little bit. So if you like it, it's there. You can enjoy it. But for me personally, it was just more of like, oh, okay, this is kind of what it is. I'm gonna just zone out, and that's also a plus. I would say if you don't really like these kind of stories, or you kind of think it could be bad or not really helpful or healthy to you spiritually, I would say skip it. You don't really need it to enjoy this game. I mean, that's kind of the charm of Souls-like games is that a lot of players do play it just for the gameplay experience, not for the story experience. But yeah, so those are a few goals. There's wanderers, treasures, wanderers to find and kill. There's certain items to collect. There's big bosses to fight, so you can hopefully find a king. And also on top of that, there's these temples that you can go and discover, and within it, they have these cores. I thought this was very interesting and fun because once you get to these cores, you're actually given a decision of what to do. Your little friend on your shoulder, Yak, actually kind of gives you some information about it, and you're kind of supposed to give a decision based on it. Um, I decided to steal them. Not steal them. You're given a choice to either take them or destroy them. So you know, let me know down in the comments which one you chose. I'm not going to give the outcome because there is different endings, different outcomes to this game, and let's just say that's the one I did. That is one thing that's just really fun about this game is it does have multiple endings based on what you do. It doesn't seem like it's too much on what you do, so don't stress out too much. It's just there's a few things like with those cores, you'll get a different ending based on it. I think it's fun and interesting. It does add some replay value to this game, and it's just a good time. Adding that little inside dilemma that the creators wanted. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna destroy it or keep it? I did kind of have that the first time I did it, and then once I did, I was like, all right, but it was a good time. I enjoyed that aspect of the game. And with that, I just have to say, for those who are wanting to look into playing this game, whether you're a someone who loves Souls-like games and want to experience more of that, I say go right ahead. I think it's worth your time. I think it's worth the value of money that's provided in it. It does give its own unique value. Just keep in mind that there is a few bugs and you'll have to be a little bit patient with it, but it's not that bad. I don't think it ruins the experience at all. For those who do not really want the aspects of a mainline Dark Souls game of it being very gritty and brutal and gruesome, and you want more of just the hard gameplay mechanics that are known with the Souls games, I think this is a great game also for you. Again, you can just kind of bypass the story if you don't want to risk it with that side. You just want gameplay. I think this works for you. And again, this game also does add value with it, just open world and whatnot. I think it's a fun experience for all people. And to finish this off, would I have played this game if I knew what it was? Well, I would say for sure. If I knew I could use the speed, I would use that for sure. But to be honest with the game, if I knew how the game worked and how like bugs and whatnot was gonna be in the game, would I still play it again? I think I would. I really enjoyed my experience with the game. It did add a unique value with the platforming and exploration. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. It did give me a little freedom of where I wanted to go. With the story though, I don't know. I could go either two ways. I could either go heavy into the story and be like, you know what, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna try to unlock it because you do have to use a certain amount of currency at different spots to unlock the story. And so for collectors out there, that's fun. That can be enjoyable in itself. But at the same time, I don't know. I could easily get a great value at this game just by simply passing the story and moving on without it. The biggest problem with this game is its comparison to Dark Souls. When comparing this game to the mainline Souls games, the contrast is massive. And I would say it very much ruins the possibility of this game being. This is ultimately just a problem with the Souls-like genre in general. Um, I mean, it makes me think of Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon games, there's a lot of similar ones to it, but they don't seem to match up with Pokemon, or they can't be compared. They have to be compared with Pokemon, and it really ruins those games from being its own experience. I think this game does add a lot of unique value to itself. And I think with time, it can very much be its own thing. But when comparing it to the AAA standards of the mainline Souls games, it looks not the best. But let me know down in the comments if you're planning on picking up this game or not. Totally let me know if you are. Let me know your experience. I'd love to hear it. Also, down in the comments, if you want to see a game that I cover, a RPG or a JRPG, whether obscure or classic, let me know down in the comments. But that's going to do us today.